This story is about the kind of job that makes you forget what silence sounds like. A place where the air hums with refrigeration and every sound feels like it's echoing through someone else's dream. I've worked in a morgue for over 8 years, tucked beneath an old hospital that the city mostly forgot. People think death is quiet, but it isn't. It creaks, it sighs, it moves, and for a long time, I told myself it was all in my head until I started hearing voices coming from the drawers that were supposed to stay closed. Listen carefully, because this isn't just another story. It's a warning from someone who's learned what it means when the dead refuse to rest. The parking lot behind St. Mark's Hospital is always colder than it should be. Maybe it's the open asphalt. Maybe it's the way the light from the lamps never seems to touch the ground. When you work the night shift at a morgue, you start noticing things like that. Shadows that move slower than they should, air that feels heavier near certain doors, the way footsteps seem to echo even when you're standing still. That night, the clock in my car read 11:37 p.m. I sat there for a minute before getting out, engine ticking softly, watching the condensation crawl down the windshield like something alive. I hated starting late. The morgue always felt different after midnight, more aware, like it knew you were alone. When I finally opened the door, the wind slipped in, cold and sharp. It smelled faintly of rain and exhaust. Somewhere far off, an ambulance wailed through the city. The sound faded fast, swallowed by distance and concrete. My shift was supposed to be easy. Log 3 new arrivals, Prep 1. For an early morning examination, lock up before dawn. Nothing unusual, but as I walked toward the back entrance, I saw something that made me stop. There was a man standing near the dumpster, not close enough to see his face clearly, but close enough that I could tell he wasn't hospital staff. He wasn't smoking or moving, just standing there, facing the building. I hesitated. The security lights flickered once, then steadied. When they did, he was gone. I told myself I'd imagined it. I'd been tired lately, barely sleeping, too many double shifts. Still, when I reached the door and slid my ID card through the reader, I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching me. The hallway inside smelled like bleach and stale coffee. The air was warm, recycled, humming with fluorescent light. The morgue sat 3 floors down, past radiology and the basement maintenance wing. You had to take an old elevator, the kind that groaned every time it moved, like it hated being awake at this hour. 2. When the doors opened, I was met with the usual stillness. Rows of lockers for personal belongings, a narrow corridor lined with stainless steel tables, and the low, endless drone of refrigeration units. The bodies were kept in individual drawers, metal labeled silent. But silence in that room was always relative. The compressor would sigh, the pipes would click, the bulbs would buzz faintly overhead. Every sound felt amplified, as if the building itself was listening. I signed in, flipped through the intake log, and pulled the first file. Male, mid-40s, unidentified, found near the river. That was all the police had written. I'd handled worse, after washing my hands and putting on gloves. I approached drawer 16. It opened with a metallic groan, revealing a body covered by a white sheet. I pulled it back slowly. The face beneath looked peaceful at first, pale, thin, expressionless. But there was something odd about the mouth. It was slightly open, as if frozen mid-whisper. His eyes had been closed, but the lids fluttered when the drawer moved, almost like a reflex. I leaned closer, Nothing, just the hum of the cooler and my own breathing. I started the routine examination, tag check, condition notes, photo documentation. The air felt heavier than usual, like the cold was pressing down from the ceiling. Halfway through, the lights flickered again, once, twice, then steady. That's when I heard it, a soft, breathy sound. Not the compressor, not the pipes, something closer, cold. It was barely audible, like the air itself had formed the word. I froze, eyes locked on the corpse, for a full minute. I didn't move. My brain scrambled for logic, air pressure release, refrigerant hiss, auditory fatigue, anything but what it sounded like. But then it came again, cold. I stepped back, heart hammering, staring at the body on the table. The lips weren't moving, but the sound was unmistakable. It was coming from somewhere near the chest, faint and low, as though someone were exhaling words from inside the ribcage. My gloves squeaked as I pulled them off. I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath until my chest started to ache. It stopped as suddenly as it started. The room went still. Only the dull buzz of the fluorescent lights remained. I told myself it was stress, sleep deprivation, caffeine, the morgue playing tricks on my senses. I documented the body, recovered it, and slid the drawer shut. But as the metal clicked into place, a whisper brushed my ear, so close I felt the air move. "Don't shut me in." The lights flickered once more, and for a split second, I saw a reflection in the drawer's polished surface, not mine, someone else's face, pale and open-eyed, staring back. When I turned, the room was empty. Still, I knew then, something had changed. The morgue wasn't silent anymore. It had started to speak. The hallways of the morgue had a different feeling once the initial shock of the whisper wore off. Every step I took echoed against the tiles, a hollow, lonely sound that seemed to mock me. I ran my gloved hands over the railing, over the cold metal of the tables, and tried to focus on the paperwork in front of me. Routine, I told myself. Just routine. But the feeling lingered, the one that made my skin crawl despite the fluorescent warmth, like something was following me. Not in the air, not in the shadows, but in the spaces between, watching, waiting. I paused by the break room, leaning against the counter. My reflection in the coffee machine was pale, worn, eyes wide. I tried to shake it off. I told myself exhaustion was the culprit. 2 double shifts back to back, 15-hour nights, no sleep longer than 3 hours at a time. I was vulnerable, sure, and my mind was ready to play tricks, but that was before I saw him. A man standing near the end of the hallway. I froze mid-step. He was tall, lean, dressed in an old coat that looked like it had been cut and stitched from decades past. His face was obscured by shadows, though I could feel his eyes on me, burning under the fluorescent light. I cleared my throat. "Hello." No response. The kind of silence that makes you second-guess the words you just spoke settled between us. Then he moved, slowly, deliberately, each step in rhythm with the hum of the building, not like a man, but like a shadow taking the form of one. I reached for the intercom, something stupid like calling security, but my hand froze midair. I felt that same pull I'd felt in the drawer, that same pressure in my chest. Something about this man made it impossible to look away, impossible to move. Finally, his voice came, low, rasping, like sandpaper over a hollow pipe. "Don't ignore her, James." My heart skipped a beat. The name James was mine, spoken by someone I'd never met, someone who shouldn't have known it. Who are you?" I managed, voice unsteady. betraying the calm I usually relied on in situations like this. He tilted his head slightly, studying me as though assessing whether I would listen or run. Do not ignore her, he repeated, or you will see what happens when the dead become impatient. Before I could ask what he meant, he was gone, just gone. No footsteps, no rustle of clothing, no echo. The hall was empty. The break room silent except for the faint buzz of fluorescent light. I told myself it was impossible. No one could have moved that fast. No one could have disappeared like that without a trace. Exhaustion, paranoia, the morgue playing tricks again. Yet the feeling of being watched lingered. I tried to focus on the new intake paperwork. Another body had arrived, and my hands shook. As I lifted the file. A woman, early 30s, unknown circumstances. Her chart was thin, but the smell of her presence was thick in the air, almost sweet, like smoke curling from a candle. I walked down the hall, approaching the refrigeration units to check her drawer. Each step was careful, deliberate, my shoes squeaking against the tile. I felt it again, the pressure, that intangible weight behind my eyes. Then I heard it, soft, like someone breathing directly in my ear, though I knew no one was. There, tell me about her. James. I froze, gloves gripping the edge of the table. The voice wasn't human, not quite, rasping, hollow, yet familiar in the strangest way, almost like a memory buried deep in my mind. Emma. I whispered. The name escaped before I realized I'd said it aloud. My pulse raced. The files on the table trembled slightly under my hands. I wanted to run, but my body didn't respond. The lights flickered. I thought I saw a green flash, just a movement, a shimmer near the corner of my vision. But when I turned, the hallway was empty. I checked every corner, every shadowed doorway. Nothing, and yet I knew he had been there. The warning was clear. Do not ignore her. I had no idea who Emma was at that moment. No idea why this stranger knew my name. No idea why the air felt heavy with someone else's presence. All I knew was that fear had settled deep in my bones. It wasn't the kind of fear you shake off after a minute. It was a slow, crawling dread, like ice moving through your veins, like watching a shadow stretch just beyond the light of a candle. I tried to finish my shift. I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion, stress, that I was seeing things that weren't real. But when I returned to the drawers, I noticed the faintest trace of something. A green jacket, torn and frayed, lying neatly on the counter. I didn't recognize it at first, and then it hit me. That jacket. I hadn't seen it before, but the smell, blood, iron, something else I couldn't place, made me stumble back. I reached out, fingers trembling, to touch the fabric and recoiled. It was wrong. It clung to the counter as if it were alive, as if it were waiting, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for someone to care, and in that instant, I understood the warning. This wasn't about bodies. Not YET.IT wasn't about. The morgue.IT was about her. Emma. I didn't know her. I didn't know what she wanted, but something told me that if I ignored this, I would regret it. The hallway behind me shivered with cold air, and for a moment, I thought I saw the same stranger's silhouette just beyond the break room, watching, waiting, judging. I backed away slowly, hands raised as if to show I meant no harm. But the jacket remained, the whisper lingered in my mind, and the shadow dissolved into nothingness. That was when I realized I wasn't alone in this, and I would never be the same again. The night had settled into a kind of heavy silence that made every sound too loud, every breath too sharp. I was making my rounds, double-checking the drawers, filing charts, When the doors to the emergency bay swung open, the air outside was damp, cold, carrying the scent of asphalt and rain that had fallen earlier. I didn't think much of it at first. People come in bloody, terrified, sometimes incoherent, all the time. It's part of the job. But when she walked in, Emma, everything felt different. I remember the first thing that hit me was the jacket. A green military coat, shredded, slashed as if it had been attacked with a knife. It hung from her like it was a second skin, stubbornly refusing to be removed. Despite the blood that clung to the fabric, her arms were gouged, raw and red, and 3 of her ribs were fractured. But still, that coat clung. She moved forward on unsteady legs, blood bubbling from between her teeth. Her eyes, wild, unseeing at first, snapped to me. Then came the words. Gruff, unnatural, almost not her own. James. Perry wants to know if Kathy's okay. Tell me she's okay. The words slammed into me harder than any physical blow. Perry. Kathy. Names that had been locked away in memory, buried after the worst night of my life. I froze, gloves gripping the chart I had been carrying, heart pounding. I had lied to Perry when he asked about Kathy. He had died moments later, and now, here was this woman, bloodied and broken, speaking as if she knew. It made no sense. I wanted to step back, to call security, to ask her how she even knew my name, but my feet felt like they were cemented to the floor. Who? How do you know that? I whispered, voice shaking. Her eyes closed briefly, then opened again, staring straight into mine. She didn't answer. She simply let out a soft, rasping breath, as if to say she didn't need to. By the time we got her sedated and into restraints, I was shaking. I moved like a zombie toward the waiting room to inform her boyfriend, Ryan, that she was stable. He didn't look at me, didn't ask about her injuries. He only asked, voice tight, is the jacket off? I nodded. It's off. We put it in a biohazard bag. He let out a small, shaky sigh of relief, but the moment I turned back to her room, the impossible had happened. The jacket was there, sitting on the chair next to her, sleeve brushing my arm as if it had been waiting for me. Dried blood streaked the fabric, and it smelled faintly metallic, sticky, as though it had absorbed more than just her wounds. I couldn't imagine anyone would put it back there. The hospital staff, the nurses, the orderly, I knew them all. No one would do this. And then her eyes opened again, full of a darkness that seemed almost ancient. Tell me what happened to Kathy. James, she said, voice low, uneven, not quite her OWN.my stomach twisted. How do you know about that? I asked, barely able to form the words. She didn't answer. Her eyes closed again, and she went limp in the restraints. I moved through the halls, asking everyone I could find if they had put the jacket back. And no one knew what I was talking about. Some gave me strange looks. A colleague, worried, asked if I was feeling okay. I wasn't. I wasn't okay at all. When I returned to the room, it was gone. The jacket. I felt my heart pound. I ran to the storage room. It was there, inside the biohazard bag, sealed tight. I couldn't explain it. My mind refused to. The rational side told me it had to be a hallucination. The rest of me knew it wasn't. I wanted answers. I should have gone home. I should have slept. I should have stayed away. But I didn't. I couldn't stop thinking about Emma, about the way she spoke, about Perry, about Kathy, about what was coming. Back home, I drank more than I should, staring at the wall, replaying every detail. The jacket, the whispers, the impossible words. It was proof that whatever I thought I understood, about life and death wasn't true, and that's when I decided I needed to see the house. The place where Perry and his family had died. I needed to see it with my own eyes. I needed to know if this connection, Emma, the jacket, Perry, was real, or if I was losing my mind entirely. The house had been empty for a year, windows boarded, grass overgrown, an air of something rotten clinging to the structure like a warning. I slipped in through the back, breaking a small window, stepping over shards of glass. Even in the faint morning light, the interior was dark, the air pressed down on my chest. Every step echoed on the wooden floorboards, every creak making my skin crawl. I smelled it first, metallic, sharp, unmistakable. Blood. It wasn't just a memory. It was here, and then I saw him, Perry, stumbling through the foyer, blood flooding his clothes, mouth open in a scream, and then he was gone. Gunshots rang out from below, echoing through the house. I ran, instinct driving me up the stairs to the first door I could find. I ducked inside a bedroom, my chest burning, every nerve alive. The closet door opposite me creaked, moving on its own until it bumped gently against the wall. Children's clothes swayed in the dim light, and then I heard it. "Hey, come here." A pale arm extended from the hanging clothes. A child's voice, whispering urgently, "We need to hide." Grandpa's acting weird. I froze. Every instinct told me to run, but something, fear, curiosity, obsession, made me step closer. The closet's darkness swallowed me as I moved inside, and in that moment, I understood. This was no ordinary night. This was the beginning of something I couldn't escape. The house was silent in a way that made every sound too loud. Every creak of the floorboards beneath my shoes, every whisper of wind through the broken window, felt amplified, like the walls were listening. My chest tightened as I moved through the hallway. Flashlight in hand, heart pounding, and then I saw it. The jacket. It wasn't on a chair, it wasn't in a drawer. It was there, hovering a few inches above the floor, green fabric frayed, soaked in dried blood, the lining ripped to ribbons. But it wasn't laying there naturally, as if someone had dropped it. No, this thing moved. It shifted slightly, as if breathing, the sleeves curled and uncurling, the jacket twisting slowly like a snake, waiting for me. I froze. Adrenaline surged through me. But my legs refused to move. Logic screamed at me, clothes don't move on their own. Yet my eyes were seeing it. My hands trembled as I raised my flashlight. The beam hit the jacket, illuminating every slit and tear in the fabric. It was alive. I took a cautious step forward, then another. The jacket shifted again, sliding across the wooden floor as if pulled by an invisible hand. I stumbled back, catching myself on the doorframe, heart hammering. Cold sweat dripped down my back. I wanted to run. I wanted to leave and never come back, but I couldn't. Something in me, curiosity, dread, obsession, made me stay. "Emma," I whispered. The word tasted strange in my mouth, but I needed to say it. The jacket twitched. A soft, low thrum began to hum from it, faint, like a heartbeat. It pulsed, almost imperceptibly at first, then louder, stronger, resonating in my chest, and then I heard the whisper, "James." It was her voice, but not just her voice. There was something behind it, deeper, older, something that wasn't human. I stumbled back toward the wall, sliding down until I was sitting on the floor, flashlight trembling in my hands. The jacket shifted closer, moving toward me with deliberate intent. I could feel it in the air, the pull, the pressure, as if it were aware of my fear, aware of me. I swallowed, my throat dry, hands shaking. "Emma," What are you? The hum stopped. The whispering stopped. The jacket lay still for a moment, like a predator watching its prey. Then it flung itself toward the wall, slamming into it with a force that made my ears ring. The fabric rippled, the blood stains seeming to darken before my eyes. I scrambled to my feet, stumbling back into the hallway. My flashlight beam flickered and shook as I turned. The house felt alive now, breathing, moving with me. Every shadow seemed to stretch. Reaching for me. I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, heavy, not mine, not human. They echoed behind me, then paused. I turned, nothing. Then the jacket moved again, sliding along the floor toward the staircase, as if beckoning me. I had no choice. I followed. The stairs groaned beneath my weight, each step an announcement to the unseen. I reached the landing and froze. At the bottom of the stairs, I could see the faint outline of an old man, hunched, his jacket familiar. The same green jacket Emma had worn. My stomach dropped. Blood ran cold through my veins. He looked at me, slow and deliberate. There was no expression, just that calm, impossibly knowing gaze. James, he rasped, voice cracking like dry wood. I need it back. I tried to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. The jacket had moved again, now swirling around the landing like it had a mind of its own. I could feel it brushing my legs, sticky with something I didn't want to identify. The hum started again, vibrating through the floorboards and into my chest, and then I saw Emma. She was there, on the stairs behind me, eyes wide, innocent looking at first. Then, the gruff, unnatural voice slipped back in. James. Ryan has it. I can help you talk to Hannah again. The words froze me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to turn around, to see if she was really there, but my body refused. The jacket twisted in the air, snapping toward the old man. He reached for it, but it shot past him, floating toward me. I stumbled back against the railing, and it landed on the floor at my feet, green fabric frayed, soaked in the dried blood of someone. I picked it up, trembling, feeling its weight. It wasn't just a coat. It was something else, something that carried memory, carried anger, carried life. The old man disappeared. The air went still. Emma's eyes, wide and unseeing a moment ago, were now dark, empty, staring into something I couldn't understand. I backed away, holding the jacket like a shield, unsure if it would protect me or devour me. The house seemed to pulse around me, the walls closing in and stretching at the same time. A whisper curled through the air. You know now, James. You can't ignore her. And then the jacket shifted again. It moved toward the door, toward the exit I hadn't noticed before. I didn't follow it, couldn't follow it. I was frozen, trapped by fear, by wonder, by the undeniable proof that whatever Emma was, whatever the jacket was, it was not bound by the rules of this world. I left the house that night with the jacket in my hands, careful not to look back. Rain-slicked streets reflected the city lights, but the world felt thinner somehow, more fragile. The hum of the jacket beneath my fingers was faint but insistent, a pulse that seemed to echo in my very bones. I didn't drive home. I couldn't. Something inside me told me that moving too quickly, ignoring what I'd just witnessed, would be a mistake. So I went back to the ER, back to the place where it had all started. The storage room where the jacket had been last was empty. No bag, no blood-stained fabric, nothing. I carried it with me, unsure if I was protecting it or if it was controlling me. When I entered Emma's room, she was asleep, Her chest rose and fell slowly, the innocence of a child for a brief, fleeting moment, and then her eyes snapped open, dark, piercing, unrecognizable. "Where am I?" she asked, voice low and sharp. Her gaze locked on me, and I realized with a shiver that she could see everything I had done, everything I had thought, every lie I had ever told. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The jacket hummed, shifting lightly in my hands, and I knew this was only the beginning. The ER never felt the same after that night. Even with the lights flickering on and the fluorescent hum steady again, I could feel it, the weight of Emma, the jacket, the house, the whispers pressing down on every hallway. Every corner. It wasn't just a room anymore. It was alive. I walked slowly, deliberately, back toward the storage room where the jacket had vanished before. The air was thick, humid, carrying the faint scent of iron and disinfectant mixed together. My footsteps echoed unnaturally, bouncing off walls that I had walked 1,000 times before. The building seemed larger, unfamiliar. When I opened the door to the storage room, I expected the jacket to be gone, maybe lying in the corner, heavy with blood and presence. It wasn't. It floated a few inches off the floor, hovering as though it had been waiting for me all along. I froze. The hum that had been faint in the house was now unmistakable here, vibrating through the floor, the walls, even my chest. The lights above flickered in time with it, shadows dancing like phantoms along the cold concrete walls. "James," the whisper came again, faint, closer, behind me. I turned, flashlight trembling in my hands, only to see the room empty. And yet I could feel it, the awareness, the presence, the undeniable pull of something that was not entirely human. I backed out slowly, holding the jacket as a shield, though I wasn't sure if it was protecting me or controlling me. The doors to the hallway creaked. A shadow moved, long and unnatural, stretching down the corridor. It didn't walk. It slithered, and I could feel its eyes on me. I wanted to leave, run, escape, but I couldn't. Not yet. The lights flickered violently, plunging the hallway into darkness for a few seconds before snapping back. When they did, I saw her, Emma, standing at the far end of the hall, eyes wide, innocent, human. But the moment she spoke, the voice changed. Gruff, otherworldly, commanding. "James, Ryan has it. You know what to do." My pulse accelerated. I didn't understand. I didn't want to, but I knew that the hospital itself was responding, alive somehow, drawn into the same unnatural rhythm as the jacket and Emma. I moved cautiously toward her, heart hammering. The air grew colder, sharper, like someone had cracked a window into winter. Shadows elongated, stretching across walls, pulling at my feet. I could hear the soft whisper of hundreds of breaths in the distance, though the hospital should have been empty. And then the equipment started. Monitors beeped without being powered on. Point 4 stands rattled, tubing slapping against metal like the fingers of unseen hands. Doors opened and closed with no one there, the echoing slam reverberating through the hallways. Every drawer in the morgue storage room rattled violently, like something inside was trying to escape. I stumbled backward, clutching the jacket, my mind struggling to comprehend. I had seen death every day for years. I had seen the worst of humanity. But this was different. It was alive. Emma's voice came again, low and commanding. "You can talk to her again. Hannah, you know where she is." I stopped moving, unable to comprehend the words. Hannah, the woman from the family Perry had asked about all those months ago, the one I had lied to him about, the one I had buried in my memory. A shadow moved behind me. I turned, flashlight catching only the faint shimmer of green fabric in the darkness. The jacket. It was floating again, moving slowly across the floor, pulsing like a heartbeat, radiating heat and cold at the same time. I could feel it, every nerve ending alive with terror and anticipation. The hospital was awake. It knew I had the jacket. It knew I had come back. And then I saw him, the old man, the same one from the house. He appeared in the doorway, hunched, eyes glinting in the light, mouth moving silently before rasping, "Close your eyes." My instincts screamed at me to run, to hide, to escape, but my body wouldn't move. The jacket pulsed at my feet, and Emma's voice echoed in my head. "You can help. You can see her again." I swallowed, chest tight. I knew she meant Hannah. I didn't want to, and yet I could feel it, the pull, the irresistible, terrifying gravity of the jacket and the hospital, and of Emma herself. The monitors around me beeped in a low, rhythmic pattern. The shadows stretched, twisting into shapes I could almost recognize, figures that weren't there before, gliding through the hallways. I heard whispers everywhere, soft, urgent, pleading. "James, help." "James." I reached for the jacket. Its fabric was warm now, sticky, pulsing, alive. I could feel it guiding me, urging me forward. Step by step, I followed, moving deeper into the hospital, where the air was thicker, darker, heavier, where the lights flickered and shadows danced, where the dead seemed to watch and the living trembled. I knew then I was no longer in control. The hospital, Emma, the jacket, they were aware of me, and I was only a player in their game. And yet, despite the fear, despite the terror, a strange calm washed over me, because I knew I had a chance. A chance to see her again. A chance to talk to Hannah. To reach across the impossible divide between life and death. But the question remained, could I survive the journey? Could I survive what waited in the shadows? The hospital awakened around me, and I was trapped in the eye of a storm I could neither understand nor escape. The lights in the ER flickered, casting long, wavering shadows down the hall. The hum of monitors, once comforting in its rhythm, had turned into a low, menacing vibration that reverberated through the floor and my bones. Every shadow seemed to pulse, as if breathing, alive in the corners where no one should be. I could hear her before I saw her. A soft rasping, low and uneven, like a voice carried from the depths of something old. "James." I froze. The green jacket in my hands pulsed faintly, a heartbeat against my fingers. The sensation was both terrifying and magnetic, pulling me toward her, toward the room at the end of the hall. When I stepped inside, she was sitting upright in the bed. Her eyes were wide, innocent, almost human. For a brief moment, I thought she was just a scared, bloodied girl in a hospital gown, and then her voice shifted, gruff, commanding, unrecognizable. "James, do you know who I am?" I swallowed hard, voice barely a whisper. "Emma." I think I do." Her lips curved into a slow, eerie smile. "You think you do." The air grew colder, thick with the scent of iron and smoke. Shadows shifted unnaturally, stretching along the walls, pulling at my feet. The jacket on the floor twitched, as if sensing the tension, ready to strike, ready to obey. "I can help you," she said. Her voice softened slightly, but the underlying gruffness remained. "I can help you talk to Hannah again." I stepped closer, heart hammering, palms slick with sweat. I don't know if I can, I whispered. I don't know if I should. Her eyes locked on mine, dark, piercing, impossible to look away from. You don't have a choice, James. Not anymore. The words sank into me like ice. The hospital around us seemed to pulse with life. Monitors beeped, for stands rattled, and the faint whispers of voices, hundreds of them, some pleading, some commanding, filled the air. I could feel the pull of the jacket, the warmth of it in my hands, the life coursing through the fabric. It was alive. It wanted something, and I was holding it. Emma, what happened? Why me? I asked, voice shaking. Her gaze softened briefly, and for a fleeting moment, she looked like a human girl again. I don't know why you were chosen, she said. Not at first. But now, you have the chance to fix what was broken, to speak to them again. I shook my head. This isn't right. This is wrong. Her expression hardened. You lied to him, Perry. You told him she was okay. You betrayed him. You have to make it right, James. I felt a shiver crawl up my spine. The words weren't just accusations, they were commands. The hospital itself seemed to bend closer, listening, alive with expectation, and then the jacket moved, sliding across the floor, pulsing, vibrating against my fingertips. It shifted toward Emma, then back toward me, as if measuring my hesitation, judging my worth. I don't know if I can, I repeated, desperation creeping into my voice, my mind. It's not right. I don't know what's real anymore. Her voice softened, almost a whisper, but every syllable carried weight, gravity, inevitability. You can. You must. Or everything will be lost again. You've seen the proof, James. You've felt it. You can't deny it anymore. I glanced around the room. The monitors pulsed in rhythm with the jacket. Shadows danced along the walls like specters, and I could hear the softest whispers calling my name, urging me forward, warning me back. The hospital was alive. Emma was alive. The jacket. The jacket was more than a coat. I took a deep breath, feeling the pressure in my chest, the cold creeping into my bones. I need to know. Hannah, I said, my wife. Perry's wife. How? Emma's lips curled into that unsettling smile again. You already know how. You just need to listen. The lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness for a heartbeat before snapping back. When they returned, she was closer, her eyes dark, endless, commanding. You hold the jacket, James. It will guide you. It will show you the way. But you must obey. You must see it through. My hands trembled as I held the coat closer. The bloodstains seemed to writhe under my fingertips. The hum in the fabric grew louder, pulsing through the floorboards, vibrating through my chest. It was alive, conscious, aware. I knew then. There was no turning back. Emma's words, the jacket's pull, the hospital's awareness, all of it demanded action, and I was trapped in its gravity. I'll do it, I whispered, though my voice was barely audible. A tremor ran through my body as I said it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll do it. Her eyes softened for the briefest moment. Good, she said. You're ready. You'll see them, James. You'll see them, and you'll know the truth. And then, just as suddenly, the air shifted. The shadows receded. The monitors went quiet. The whispers faded. The hospital settled into an uneasy calm. But the jacket pulsed faintly in my hands. A heartbeat. A promise. A warning. I knew I had taken the first step. The path was set, and there was no turning back. Emma had spoken. The dead had reached through the veil, and I I had accepted. The hospital, once a place of routine of life and death, had awakened fully, and I was no longer the nurse walking its halls. I was something else now, something bound to the jacket, to Emma, to the voices of the dead, and somewhere deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. The hospital wasn't a building anymore. It was a living, breathing thing, awake and aware, moving in ways I couldn't understand. Every hallway stretched longer than it should have, shadows pooling into corners that hadn't existed moments before. The hum of the jacket in my hands was louder now, insistent, urgent. It throbbed with a life of its own, guiding me, pushing me, warning me. I moved cautiously through the hallways, heart hammering, flashlight in one hand, the jacket clutched in the other. Every step felt wrong, like the floor itself was shifting beneath me. The walls seemed to lean closer, closing in, forcing me towards something I couldn't see yet knew was there. Then I heard it, a low, dragging sound, coming from somewhere behind me, slow, deliberate. Footsteps. I froze, listening. There was no one else in the hospital. I knew that, and yet the sound was there, closer now, heavy, shuffling, deliberate. I turned slowly, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. Nothing, just shadows. Shadows that seemed to stretch, moving in ways shadows shouldn't. And then the whisper came, soft, urgent, almost a hiss. James, come this way. The jacket pulsed at my side, tugging me forward, guiding me. I didn't want to follow. I wanted to run. To escape, to leave the hospital and never come back. But something, fear, obsession, curiosity, propelled me forward. The shadows around me began to move, stretching across the walls, coiling along the floor. I could hear breathing, low, uneven. Multiple breaths, some human, some not. Figures began to form, faint outlines that shimmered in the edges of my vision. They were just beyond the beam of my flashlight, too quick to focus on, too solid to dismiss. And then I heard it, Emma's voice. James, don't be afraid. You need to see. I swallowed, trying to steady my trembling hands. See what? I whispered, the jacket's pulse stronger now, vibrating against my chest. I realized then it wasn't just guiding me. It was pulling me. I had no choice. I ran. The hallway stretched impossibly long in front of me, shadows twisting like smoke around the corners. The lights flickered violently, plunging the corridors into darkness for seconds at a time. I stumbled over a wet floor, my hands scraping along the walls, leaving streaks of blood, mine or someone else's. I couldn't tell. Behind me, the dragging sound grew louder, faster, closer. I could feel it, smell it, taste it, the presence of something hunting me. I dared not look back. The jacket pulsed with every step, vibrating in my hands, guiding me, demanding I keep moving. I turned a corner and the floorboards seemed to vanish beneath me. The hallway stretched upward, impossibly long, twisting into a spiral I hadn't noticed before. The shadows climbed the walls, reaching for me, fingertips cold as ice brushing against my skin. I stumbled, almost falling, and the jacket fell from my hands, hovering in the air just ahead. It pulsed, impatient, a heartbeat of urgency. I grabbed it again, and the whispers returned, soft, pleading, insistent. James, you must hurry before it finds you. I didn't know who or what it was. I didn't want to know. All I knew was that the shadows were growing bolder, more aggressive, crawling along the walls, reaching out. I rounded another corner, and the hospital changed again. The walls became flesh, pulsing. Writhing, the lights flickering in patterns that made no sense. Figures emerged from the walls, pale faces, hollow eyes, silent mouths, reaching toward me with skeletal hands. I screamed, but the sound was swallowed by the darkness. Absorbed into the very air around me, the jacket pulsed in my hands, brighter now, almost glowing with an inner light. It seemed to scream, "This way. Hurry." I ran faster, feet pounding on the warped floors. The shadows swarmed closer, their whispers a deafening roar in my ears. I could feel cold fingers brush against my neck, my arms, my back. I was being hunted, surrounded, trapped, and then I saw her, Emma, standing at the end of a hallway that had not existed moments before. Eyes wide, dark, commanding. The jacket pulsed in her direction, vibrating so strongly that I felt it in my chest, in my bones. "James," she said, her voice calm now, almost gentle. "You're almost there. You can see her. You can fix it." I wanted to argue, to refuse, to turn away. But the shadows were closing in, the whispers growing louder, the hospital alive with something ancient, something waiting for me to fail. I ran toward her, the jacket leading me, pulsing in my hands. Alive and aware, every step I took was mirrored by the shadows, every heartbeat synchronized with the hum of the fabric. I didn't know if I would survive this. I didn't know if I wanted to, but I kept running, and then the shadows parted, just enough for me to see a room ahead, glowing faintly in the dim emergency lights, and inside, a figure, Hannah, alive, or something like alive, waiting for me. The whispers reached a crescendo, a roar of voices all at once. "James, don't fail. Don't stop. Don't look away." I took a deep breath, heart hammering, chest tight, sweat stinging my eyes. The jacket pulsed one last time, guiding me forward, and I stepped into the room. The room ahead was silent, almost unnaturally so, but the air hummed with tension, alive with a presence I couldn't name. Hannah stood there, pale and fragile, her eyes wide and unblinking, like she was both aware and trapped at the same time. The dim emergency lights cast long shadows across the walls, shadows that seemed to reach for me, twisting and coiling like smoke. The jacket throbbed in my hands, pulsing like a heartbeat, warm and heavy, almost pressing against my chest. I realized then it wasn't just guiding me. It was controlling me, tethering me to this moment, forcing me to see, to understand, to confront. "James," Emma's voice came from the far corner, gruff, commanding, impossible to ignore. "You can fix this. You can speak to her. But you have to listen." I swallowed hard, every instinct screaming at me to turn and run, to leave this alive building that had become something else entirely. But I couldn't. I was too far in, too entangled, too bound by the whispers, the shadows. The jacket itself. I stepped forward slowly. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet, though the sound seemed muted, absorbed by the tension in the air. I reached out toward Hannah. Her eyes shifted slightly, the faintest glimmer of recognition, fear, and relief crossing her pale face, and then it happened. The room shifted, walls warped and stretched, the ceiling bending upward impossibly, the floor rippling like water beneath my feet. Shadows coalesced, forming shapes, figures from the past, faces of the dead, reaching, pleading, warning. I could hear whispers now, dozens of them, all overlapping. "James, help. James, tell. See, don't fail. The jacket pulsed violently in my hands, and I understood. It wasn't just a coat. It wasn't just Emma's connection to the dead. It was a bridge. A conduit. A tool that allowed the living to touch the world beyond. I looked back at Emma. She was no longer the scared, bloodied woman from the ER. She was commanding, aware, ancient somehow. Her eyes pierced mine, forcing me to see what I had to see. Hannah, I whispered, voice breaking. I'm here. I want to. I want to speak to you. The jacket pulsed again, warm and heavy, guiding my hands, guiding my voice. Hannah's lips moved, though the words were faint, almost drowned by the hum and whispers. You. James. Perry. Emma. It's all connected. I felt it then, the weight of the truth pressing down on me. Perry, the man who had died pleading about his wife, the murders, the green jacket, Emma, everything was connected. Emma wasn't just a patient. She was a messenger, a vessel. And the jacket. The jacket carried the essence, the memory, the presence of something beyond, something that tethered the living to the dead. The whispers rose to a roar, pressing into my mind, overlapping with the hum of the jacket, the command of Emma, and the fragile, trembling voice of Hannah. You can. James, you can see, you can fix, you lied, you must. I swallowed hard, the reality crashing into me. The jacket had chosen me. Emma had chosen me. The hospital itself had awakened to ensure I followed through. I looked at Hannah again, her eyes, wide and pleading, mirrored Perry's from that night. The desperation of someone trapped, someone betrayed, someone needing closure. I felt the jacket pulse stronger, vibrating, almost burning in my hands. I realized then I had a choice. But it wasn't really a choice. The bridge was open, the dead were reaching, and I could either turn away and lose everything or step forward and face the truth. I reached out, voice trembling, hands shaking, and the room shifted again. Time seemed to stretch, compress, then pause entirely. I could feel the presence of everyone, the dead, the living, Emma, Perry, Hannah, the old man, the boy Joshua. They were all here, all aware, all waiting. James. Emma's voice cut through the chaos, gruff, commanding, patient. You're ready. Speak. Listen. See the truth. I focused, clearing my mind, letting the jacket guide me, letting it bridge the impossible gap. Hannah, I whispered, barely audible over the hum. I'm here. I want to see you. I want to hear you. I want to fix this. And then I felt it. A presence pressed into me, soft, fragile, familiar. Hannah's essence, reaching across the veil. The jacket pulsed violently in response, the hum turning into a low, resonant tone that shook the floor beneath me. I could feel her memories, her fears, her pain. The night of the murders, Perry's despair, the boy hiding, the old man's rage, everything. I took a deep breath, voice steadying despite the fear. I know what happened. I know everything now. And I want to help. I want to make it right. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if acknowledging the courage, the willingness, the understanding. Emma stepped forward, her voice softer now, almost human. Good, James. Now you understand. Now you see. You can help them. The jacket pulsed one last time, intensely, then relaxed. The hum faded. The shadows withdrew. The hospital itself seemed to breathe again, settling into an uneasy calm. I looked at Hannah. Her eyes, once wide and pleading, softened. There was recognition, relief, and finally, Peace. I knew then that I had crossed the threshold. The dead had spoken. The bridge had been opened. And though the hospital, Emma, and the jacket were still alive in ways I didn't fully understand, the revelation was clear. The veil between life and death wasn't absolute, and some things, some people, could reach across it. But the question lingered, heavy and impossible. Was I ready for what came next? The hospital had settled, or at least, it seemed that way. The hum of the jacket was quieter now, pulsing softly, almost contemplative. I had felt the connection, touched the veil, spoken to Hannah, and yet the air still carried a weight I couldn't name. Something was coming, and then I heard it. The slow, deliberate shuffle of footsteps, not in the distance, not faint, right behind me. I spun around. The hall was empty. The lights flickered, a stuttering rhythm that cast every shadow in motion. I could feel it, the old man. He had returned. The jacket pulsed violently in my hands, vibrating, warning me, guiding me. Emma's voice, faint, distant, whispered, "James, he's back. Don't let him catch you off guard." I moved carefully, flashlight slicing through the darkness, every nerve on fire. The hospital halls stretched impossibly, twisting, coiling, as if the building itself were alive and rearranging to trap me. The air was thick with the scent of smoke and iron, familiar and horrifying. And then I saw him. The old man emerged from the shadows, hunched, deliberate. His eyes glinted with something ancient, terrifying, and unreadable. His hands trembled, covered in the same blistered sores I remembered, and the rifle hung heavy at his side. The green jacket, the one Emma had tried to slash off herself, clung to him, as if it had molded to his body, alive and waiting. I froze. The hospital seemed to hold its breath. The shadows pooled around him, almost protective, almost reverent, almost hungry. He moved slowly, methodically, each step measured, each shuffle a threat. Emma's voice returned, louder now, commanding, "James, do not falter. The jacket, it is your shield. It will protect you. But you must face him." I swallowed hard, gripping the jacket tightly, feeling it pulse against my chest. It wasn't just clothing anymore. It was alive, aware, and it had chosen me. The old man raised the rifle, slowly, deliberately, and the lights flickered, plunging the hallway into darkness for a heartbeat before snapping back. His eyes met mine, and I felt the full force of his presence, the rage, the pain, the death that clung to him like a second skin. And then he fired. The sound of the rifle echoed, deafening though, somehow muffled, like the hospital itself absorbed the blast. I felt the spark, the heat, the shockwave ripple through the air. Instinctively, I raised the jacket, and it absorbed the impact. The barrel of the rifle sparked against the fabric, sparks dancing along the green threads, but the jacket held, alive, protective, aware. I stumbled backward, heart hammering, sweat stinging my eyes. The old man advanced, rifle cocked again, slow, deliberate. The shadows around him twisted, writhing, forming shapes I couldn't name, reaching, grasping, hungry. The air was thick, almost solid, pressing down on me. Emma's voice cut through, calm but forceful. "James, you know what to do. You have to face him. You have to make him stop." I gritted my teeth, feeling the pulsing heartbeat of the jacket in my hands. I understood now. This wasn't just a fight for my life. It was a confrontation across the divide, a battle for the balance between the living and the dead. The old man raised the rifle again, aiming directly at me. Time seemed to slow. The hospital held its breath. The shadows froze mid-motion. Even the jacket pulsed with anticipation, alive and aware. Ready. I lunged forward, swinging the jacket in a desperate arc. The fabric hit him, not like cloth, but like a solid barrier, pushing him back, forcing him off balance. The rifle clattered to the floor, sparks dancing across the concrete. I grabbed it, feeling the weight, the danger, the inevitability. The old man's eyes flared, rage and recognition mixing into something terrifying. He moved closer, slower now, deliberate, almost measured, as if testing me, testing the jacket, testing the limits of reality itself. Emma's voice whispered, soft, insistent. James, you can end this. You can stop him. But you must trust the jacket. I held it tighter, feeling it pulse, guide, protect. The shadows around us recoiled slightly, as if acknowledging the bond between the living, the dead, and the bridge that had been formed. The old man raised his hands, blistered, shaking, and then spoke, voice low. Guttural, impossible. James, you don't understand. It's not supposed to be like this. I took a deep breath, voice trembling, hands firm. I understand more than you think. And it ends tonight. The jacket pulsed violently, a heartbeat, a drum, a warning. I swung it forward again, not as a weapon, but as a conduit. The old man recoiled, his form shimmering, flickering, almost dissolving into the shadows. A scream, half human, half something else, filled the hallway, echoing through every corner of the hospital. And then he was gone. The shadows withdrew, the hum of the jacket softened, the air cleared, though the scent of smoke and iron lingered. I was alone, jacket in hand, breath ragged, heart pounding, body trembling. Emma appeared beside me, eyes wide, human again, almost tender. You did it, she said, voice soft, almost innocent. You faced him. You survived. And you protected the balance. I sank to my knees, exhausted, trembling, the weight of the hospital, the jacket, and the dead pressing down on me. I realized then I was no longer just James, the ER nurse. I was something else now, bound to the jacket, to Emma, to the voices of the dead and the living who had not yet passed. The hospital settled into a quiet hum, monitors beeping normally, shadows retreating to corners, the air finally breathable. But I knew this was not the end. The bridge had been opened. The veil had been touched, and I had survived the old man's wrath. But what would come next? What other forces, what other presences, waited beyond that thin veil? And would I ever truly be free of it, or of the jacket? I didn't know, and for the first time I realized, maybe I never would. The hospital was quiet now, but the silence was heavy, almost alive. Every monitor beeped in steady rhythm. Every shadow seemed still, but I could feel the weight of what had happened pressing down on me. The jacket hung in my hands, pulsing faintly, alive and aware, like it had been watching, waiting, judging. Emma stood at the far end of the room, her posture calm, almost serene, but her eyes were different now, deep, knowing, impossible to read. She was no longer the frightened, bloodied girl from the ER. She was something else, something between the living and the dead, something that existed to bridge the impossible. James, she said, voice gruff, commanding, yet threaded with softness. It's time. You need to finish this. I swallowed hard. every instinct screaming at me to run, to leave the hospital, to throw the jacket away and forget everything. But I knew there was no running. The bridge had been opened. I had touched it, and now there was only one crossing left. What? What happens if I do this? I asked, voice shaking. The memories of Perry, Hannah, Joshua, and the old man pressed on my mind like a weight I could barely carry. Emma's eyes softened, fleetingly human, then hardened again. You will see them. You will speak to them. And you will know the truth. But you cannot falter, James. Not now. The jacket pulsed violently, almost like a heartbeat against my chest. I realized then that it wasn't just guiding me. It was the bridge itself, the conduit. The power it carried was immense, terrifying, and alive. And I held it. I stepped forward, flashlight trembling in my hand, following the pull of the jacket. The shadows in the room began to shift, coalescing, stretching toward me, forming shapes, faces, hands, reaching, pleading, warning. The air was thick, almost suffocating, scented with smoke. Iron and the faintest trace of blood. Emma moved beside me, silently, guiding me, her presence a tether between the living and the dead. You're ready, she said softly. Open yourself. Let them through. Let the bridge take you. I gritted my teeth and exhaled, trying to calm my pounding heart. Here goes, I whispered. I lifted the jacket, holding it like a shield, a key, a weapon. The shadows twisted violently, the walls of the hospital bending, stretching. Coiling like a living entity, figures emerged, faces pale, eyes wide, mouths open in silent screams. Perry, Hannah, Joshua, the old man. I could see them all, simultaneously alive and dead, trapped in the liminal space between worlds. Their presence pressed on me, overwhelming, suffocating, yet familiar, and I realized the jacket, Emma, the hospital itself, had brought me here for this. Emma stepped forward, placing a hand lightly on the jacket. James, you must speak. You must cross fully. You must see everything, or it will never end. I nodded, trembling, tears stinging my eyes. I'm ready, I said, voice breaking. I want to see. I want to fix it. I want to help. The jacket pulsed violently, brighter now, almost glowing, vibrating in my hands with energy that I could feel in my bones. The figures around me pressed closer, their whispers rising to a deafening chorus. James, speak, listen, see, don't fail. I took a deep breath, closing my eyes, letting the jacket guide me, letting the bridge take me fully. The hospital disappeared, the walls vanished, the shadows melted into light, and I was somewhere else entirely. I saw them, all of them, alive, moving, breathing, yet distant, ethereal. Perry, clutching Hannah's hand, fear etched across his face. Joshua, hiding behind the couch, eyes wide and trembling. The old man, hunched, trembling yet aware, his rage tempered by recognition. I realized then what had to be done. I had to speak to them, to reassure them, to give them the closure they had been denied in life. I opened my mouth, letting the jacket's power carry my words. It's over. You're safe. You're seen. You're not forgotten. The figures paused, their forms shimmering, trembling. I felt their recognition, their relief, their understanding, and then, slowly, they began to dissolve, returning to whatever place they had been trapped between. The air cleared, the shadows receded. The hospital returned to its mundane, sterile self. I opened my eyes. Emma was gone. The jacket lay on the floor, still pulsing faintly, alive, aware, but now silent. I sank to my knees, exhausted, trembling, the weight of the crossing pressing down on me. The hospital was quiet again, but I knew. I had changed. I had seen the impossible. I had touched the beyond, and the dead had spoken through me. I picked up the jacket, feeling its warmth, its life, its presence. It was no longer a tool, a weapon, or a shield. It was a reminder. A connection. A burden. As I left the room, stepping into the empty hallways, I realized something terrifying. The bridge was not closed. It was never fully closed, and the whispers, the pull, the unseen forces, they would always be there, waiting, reaching, patient. I walked to the ER doors, breathing deeply, grounding myself in the familiar fluorescent lights, the hum of machines, the distant chatter of staff. The hospital was safe again, at least for now. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. Emma was not done. The jacket was not done, and the crossing. The crossing was never truly over. I paused at the doors, looking back one last time. A whisper, soft, gruff, unmistakable, brushed against my ear. "James, we will meet again." And then I stepped outside into the night, the cool air filling my lungs, the city alive and indifferent around me. I didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if I would see Emma again or if the bridge would call me back, but I knew one thing. I had crossed. I had seen, and I had survived. The jacket hung over my shoulder, pulsing faintly, alive and waiting, and I walked into the night, knowing the dead were never far behind.